The plate shattered across the restaurant floor. "Was that supposed to scare me?" the young waitress asked quietly. The billionaire froze. His daughter, famous for destroying tutors, therapists, and anyone who tried to control her, stared back at the only adult who hadn't panicked. Around them, diners held their breath. Because everyone knew the rule: when Serafina Vance exploded, people apologized. Or they left. But Clara Jenkins didn't apologize. She bent down, picked up a broken piece of the plate, and studied it like evidence. What no one in the room realized yet was that the most powerful man in the city had just met the only person who could challenge the one thing his money had never been able to fix: his daughter. The Cornerstone Bistro wasn't the kind of place you read about in luxury magazines, but it had its own quiet dignity. Located just far enough from Fifth Avenue to be affordable, it served lawyers on a lunch break and artists nursing a single coffee for hours. Clara Jenkins knew them all. At 23, she moved with an efficiency that bordered on grace. Her mind often miles away, calculating the interest on her student loans or dissecting a theory from the psychology textbook she kept under the counter. Clara was an observer. She saw the tremor in a businessman's hand before he ordered a double espresso, the worn-out look of a new mother before she asked for the check. Her life was a study in controlled chaos: 2 jobs, night classes at Hunter College, and an apartment shared with 2 other aspiring somethings. She was tired, but she wasn't broken. The name Alistair Vance was one she only knew from the covers of Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. He was the king of Silicon Alley, a man who had built Vance Industries from a garage algorithm into a global tech empire. He was also famously a recluse, since his wife Isabella had died in a tragic riding accident 2 years prior. But the name Serafina Vance was known by a different, more notorious circle: the exasperated staff of New York's elite. The girl was a legend. Expelled from the Pembroke Academy for setting off the fire alarm with a high-powered laser, fired a staff of 12, including a Michelin star chef, by claiming they were poisoning the air. She was 10 years old and had more confirmed victories against authority than a small-time dictator. Clara knew all this because Mr. Henderson, a regular who managed a high-end nanny service, would often sit at her counter, nursing a scotch and lamenting his inability to staff the Vance penthouse. "The girl's a viper, Clara," he'd muttered just last week. "Smart as a whip, but pure venom. Vance is offering $500,000 a year. No takers. Not anymore." It was a rainy Tuesday, the bistro half empty, when the door chimed. A man in a simple, impeccably tailored black suit stepped inside, followed by a small girl who seemed to vibrate with a furious energy. Clara recognized him instantly. Alistair Vance looked less like a king and more like a man held hostage. His eyes, famous for their piercing intensity in boardrooms, were exhausted. The girl, Serafina, was a stark contrast. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe ponytail, and she wore a private school uniform that Clara recognized as belonging to the prestigious Dalton School. Clearly she'd already landed somewhere new. "A table for 2, Alistair said, his voice quiet. "Of course, sir. Right this way," Clara said, leading them to a corner booth. The moment they sat, the performance began. "This seat is damp," Serafina announced, her voice high and clear. "It's not Sarah." Alistair sighed, not even looking. "It is," she insisted. "I can feel it. It's disgusting. And this light," she said, pointing to the Art Deco fixture above. "It's buzzing. It's giving me a headache. I can't eat here." "Serafina, please, just for 20 minutes. No, this water," she said, lifting the glass Clara had just filled. "It tastes like metal. Are you trying to poison me?" Clara watched not with annoyance, but with a strange clinical fascination. This wasn't a tantrum. It was a script. It was a structured, deliberate campaign of control. The girl wasn't angry. She was working. "I can bring you bottled water, miss," Clara offered calmly. Serafina narrowed her eyes, unused to the lack of fluster. "I don't want bottled water. I want the water you get at the penthouse from the springs in Norway. This is just tap." "It is," Clara Ara agreed, not rising to the bait. "It's New York's finest filtered twice." Alistair looked up surprised. Clara Ara held his gaze for a second, then turned back to his daughter. "My name is Clara Ara. I'll be taking care of you. Can I get you a different glass of our finest tap water?" Serafina stared at her. The air crackled. This was the moment where presumably nannies burst into tears or managers rushed over with apologies. Clara Ara just stood there, notepad in hand, patient as a stone. Serafina said, her voice dropping, "Want a grilled cheese, but I want it on 9-grain bread, not white. And I want the cheese to be Gruyere, but not aged Gruyere, and the crusts cut off, not in triangles in squares. And if it's even a little bit brown, I'm sending it back." "All right," Clara Ara said, writing it down. 9-grain young Gruyere, crusts off squares, not too brown. Got it. And for you, sir?" Alistair Vance looked at Clara Ara like he was seeing a ghost. "Just a black coffee." "Coming right up." Clara Ara walked away. She could feel the girl's eyes on her back. 10 minutes later, she returned. She placed the coffee before Alistair and a plate in front of Serafina. It was perfect. 9-grain bread, lightly toasted, with 4 perfect pale yellow squares of sandwich. Serafina inspected it. She picked one up. She sniffed it. She turned it over. She put it back down. Then, with a sudden violent motion, she swiped her arm across the table, sending the plate, the sandwich, and her full glass of water crashing onto the floor. The bistro went silent. It was brown. Serafina hissed, her face pale. Alistair Vance slumped in his seat, the defeat total. He put his head in his hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the floor. "I'm so sorry." Clara Ara didn't look at Alistair. She didn't look at the shattered plate. She looked right at Serafina. Clara Ara felt the eyes of the entire restaurant on her. She saw her manager Dave storming out of the kitchen, his face a thundercloud. This was it. This was the moment she got fired for a spoiled brat's tantrum. "Mr. Vance Rice." Dave began, but Clara Ara put a hand up. A small gesture that somehow stopped him cold. She knelt, grabbing a stack of napkins from a nearby station. She didn't start cleaning the big, obvious mess. She picked up a single wet crust of bread from the floor. She looked at it, then at Serafina. Alistair was already pulling out his wallet, a thick black Amex card sliding into view. "I'll pay for it, all of it. The plate, the food, I'll pay for everyone's meal." "I'm so sorry. It was brown," Serafina repeated. But her voice was smaller now. The explosion was over, and the fallout was just silence. Clara Ara ignored the credit card. She ignored the manager. She held up the damp crust. "You're right," Clara Ara said, her voice quiet, but carrying in the silent room. "This side is a little darker than the other. My mistake. I should have checked." Serafina's head snapped up. Her jaw literally dropped of all the possible reactions. Screaming, crying, placating, threatening. Simple, factual agreement was the one she had never encountered. "But I have a question." Clara Ara continued, still kneeling, bringing herself down to the girl's eye level. The throw. Was that a 10, or just like a 7.5? The plate got good distance, but the water splash was a bit messy, not very contained. Alistair's head rose from his hands. Dave, the manager, looked like his brain had short-circuited. Serafina was speechless. She just stared. "I'm just saying," Clara Ara said, starting to gather the broken ceramic pieces. "If you're going to make a scene, it should be epic." That was okay. A little derivative of the table flip trope. You seem smart. I bet you could come up with something more original. A tiny, almost invisible flicker of a smile played on Serafina's lips before she snuffed it out. "Shut up," she muttered. "I'm serious," Clara Ara said, standing up. "All that energy, and for what a wet floor. Lame. Now, are you still hungry? Or was that just performance art? I'm not hungry." "Okay then, you'll just have to sit there while your dad drinks his coffee, which by the way is getting cold." Clara Ara calmly cleaned up the mess. She brought Alistair a fresh coffee and a new glass of water for Serafina. She didn't apologize. She didn't coddle. She just was. For the first time, Seraphina Vance was silent. She didn't complain about the light. She didn't tap her feet. She just sat there watching Clara Ara wipe down the booth, her expression one of profound and utter confusion. Alistair drank his coffee. He paid the bill, which included a generous but not obscene tip for the broken plate, and stood up. "Thank you," he said to Clara Ara. His voice was hoarse. "It's my job," she said. As they walked to the door, Seraphina looked back over her shoulder. Her eyes met Clara Ara's. Clara Ara gave her a small, non-committal sea shrug. Seraphina didn't smile, but she didn't scowl. She just looked. An hour later, as Clara Ara was finishing her shift, Dave called her into the office. "I don't know what that was, Jenkins," he said, rubbing his temples, "but my heart can't take it. Don't do it again." "Do what?" "Whatever that was. Just here." He handed her the phone. Alistair Vance's personal assistant called. "She wants you to call this number. Said it's urgent." Clara Ara looked at the piece of paper. It wasn't just a phone number. It was a summons. She felt a cold pit of dread in her stomach. She was either about to be sued or offered something she couldn't possibly handle. She wasn't sure which was worse. That evening, from her cramped apartment, she made the call. "Miss Jenkins, Mr. Vance would like to see you. His car will be outside your building in 1 hour." It wasn't a question. An hour later, a black, gleaming Mercedes S-Class, the kind that whispered of silent old money, was parked at her curb. As she got in, she felt like she was stepping into another dimension. The car pulled away, heading uptown towards the park, towards the kind of wealth that didn't just buy things, but bought people. The Vance Industries building was a shard of glass and steel, piercing the midtown skyline. Clara Ara was escorted directly to a private elevator, which opened not into a reception area, but into Alistair Vance's penthouse office. The room was vast, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, which looked like a dark rectangular blanket from this height. The space was minimalist and cold, decorated with art that was probably priceless, but felt impersonal. Alistair Vance was standing by the window. He didn't look like the defeated man from the bistro. Here, surrounded by his power, he was formidable. "M. Jenkins, thank you for coming." "You didn't give me much of a choice," Clara Ara said, clutching the strap of her messenger bag. A smile touched his lips. "No, I suppose I didn't." "Please sit." Clara Ara sat on a leather sofa that probably cost more than her car. "I'll be direct," Alistair said, turning to face her. "What I witnessed today, no one has ever done that. You didn't plate her. You didn't yell at her. And you didn't break. I was just doing my job." "No, you were doing something else. You saw her. Everyone else sees a monster or a paycheck. You saw something else." "What was it?" Clara Ara thought for a moment. "I saw a kid who's really good at her job, and her job is to make everyone leave." Alistair nodded slowly. "She is very good at it. She's been through 7 nannies in 6 months, 3 specialized behavioral therapists, the Pembroke Academy Dalton. She's on the verge of being expelled again. I am at the end of my rope. I'm a man who can solve multi-billion-dollar logistical problems, but I cannot. I can't reach my own daughter. The vulnerability was back more potent in this setting of immense power. Mr. Advance, I'm a waitress. I'm studying psychology, but I'm not qualified for this. The qualified people have all failed," he said, walking to his desk. "They come in with their degrees and their methods, and she eats them alive. They're afraid of her, or they're afraid of me. You were afraid of neither." He turned. "I want to hire you, Miss Jenkins. Not as a nanny, not as a tutor, as a companion, a handler. I don't know what to call it. I want you to spend time with her after school weekends. Do what you did today." Whatever that was, Clara Ara's mind reeled. I can't. I have my job. I have school. I will pay you," Alistair said. $400,000 a year." Clara Ara stopped breathing. That was a number so large. It was abstract. It was freedom. It was the end of debt, the end of fear. "I will also," he continued, "cover the full tuition for your master's and PhD programs at any university you choose. Columbia, Yale, anywhere." She was dreaming. This wasn't real. Why me? She whispered. Because you're the first person she's looked at without contempt in 2 years. Because you called her lame. Before Clara Ara could answer, a voice, sharp and cold, as ice, cut through the room. Alistista, you cannot be serious. A woman emerged from a connecting office. She was tall, rail-thin, and dripping with understated wealth. A simple black dress, a Bottega Veneta handbag, a severe blonde bob. She looked at Clara Ara with undisguised disdain. This is a child, not a stray dog. You can't just pick her up off the street. Genevieve, this is not your concern, Alistair said, his voice hardening. Serafina is my niece. It is entirely my concern, the woman, Genevieve Vance, snapped. She turned her cold eyes on Clara Ara. You're a waitress. What precisely do you think you can offer my niece? Better grilled cheese recipes, Genevieve, Alistista warned. No, Clara Ara said, finding her voice. It was shaking, but she stood up. You're right, Miss Vance. I'm not qualified. I don't have a degree from a fancy school and I don't know anything about this. She motioned around the opulent room. But I also don't have anything to lose. All those other people, they wanted to keep their jobs. They wanted to impress you. She looked at Alistair. I don't want your money. Alistair and Genevieve both looked stunned. I mean, I do, Clara Ara stammered. It's an insane amount of money, but that can't be why I do it. If I take your offer, I have conditions. Genevieve scoffed. Conditions? You're in no position to… What are they? Alistista interrupted. One, Clara Ara said, her courage building. You're right, I'm not a nanny. So I won't be. I'm not her servant, I'm not her friend. I'm just a person. I'm not here to fix her. I'm just here to be with her. Fine, Alistista said. 2 M's advance, she said, looking at Genevieve. Stays away from me and from Serafina when I'm with her. Your concern. It's not helping. Genevieve's face was a mask of fury. How dare you? Alistista Clara Ara asked, holding his gaze. Alistista looked at his sister. Genevieve, I'm handling this. Please leave us. You will regret this, Alistair. You're putting her in the hands of an amateur. It's reckless. She gave Clara Ara one last look of pure poison and stormed out. And 3, Alistair asked, turning back to Clara Ara. 3, Clara Ara said, taking a deep breath. You have to be involved. I'm not a replacement for you. If I call you, you come. If I say you need to be at dinner, you're there. No excuses, no board meetings. Otherwise, this is all a waste of time. Your money can't buy you out of this one. Alistista Vance, the king of Silicon Alley, looked at this 23-year-old waitress who was making demands, and for the second time that day, he did something unexpected. He smiled a real, tired but genuine smile. When can you start? The Vance penthouse was less a home and more a statement. It occupied the top 3 floors of a landmark building on Central Park West. The furniture was sparse and angular. The art was imposing, and the silence was deafening. The staff, all in crisp dark uniforms, moved like ghosts, never making eye contact. It was a fortress of glass and marble, and at its center was Serafina. Clara Ara's first day began the following Monday. She had quit her jobs. Her final Hunter College exams, suddenly a distant memory. She arrived at 3:30 p.m., just as Serafina was dropped off by a private driver from the Dalton School. Serafina saw Clara Ara standing in the grand foyer, and her face, which had been neutral, immediately shuddered. You, she said. Me, Clara Ara replied, holding up a paper bag. I brought you a grilled cheese on 9-grain young Gruyere crusts, off squares and not too brown. Serafina stared at the bag. I'm not hungry. Okay. Clara Ara sat down on an uncomfortably modern bench, opened the bag and took out a sandwich. I am. She sat there and ate the grilled cheese. Serafina watched her, her arms crossed. You're not supposed to eat here, Serafina said. Where am I supposed to eat? In the kitchen with the staff? Your father hired me as a companion, not starve, Clara Ara said, taking another bite. Besides, this bench is, well, it's terrible, but it's here. Want a bite? No, I have homework. Serafina spun on her heel and marched up a floating glass staircase. "Okay, I'll be down here," Clara Ara called after her. For 3 hours, Clara Ara sat in the foyer. She read her psychology textbook. She did a crossword puzzle. She explored the first floor, noting the distinct lack of anything personal. There were no photos, no clutter, no life. At 6:30 p.m., a chef quietly announced that dinner was served. Clara Ara went to the dining room, a cavernous space with a table that could seat 30. 2 places were set, one at each end. Serafina appeared, sat down, and unfolded her napkin. Clara Ara sat at the opposite end. "Could you pass the salt?" Clara Ara asked. The salt shaker was a good 20 feet away. Serafina looked at her, then at the salt, then back at her. "No." "Okay." Clara Ara got up, walked the length of the table, got the salt, and walked back. They ate in silence. The food was exquisite. Pan-seared scallops with a saffron risotto. Serafina picked at hers. So Clara said, "What's the deal with this school Dalton better, or worse than Pembroke?" "It's boring," Serafina said. "What's boring about it?" "Everything. The teachers are stupid. The kids are stupid. Everyone's stupid. Yes. Must be lonely being the only smart person in the whole building." Serafina's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "You're stupid too." "Probably," Clara Ara agreed. "I'm failing my advanced statistics class. It's brutal. But I'm pretty good at spotting a liar." Serafina put her fork down. "I'm not lying. You are. You don't think they're stupid? You think they're something else. But stupid is a good word. It's a shield. Shuts people up. Makes them stop asking questions." Serafina stood up. "I'm done." She walked out. This was the pattern for the first week. Serafina would test. Clara Ara would deflect. Serafina would insult. Clara Ara would agree and reframe. Clara Ara was a living, breathing wall of neutral calm, and it was driving the girl insane. She was used to explosions. Clara Ara offered only echoes. The second week, Serafina escalated. Clara Ara arrived to find her in the library. "I'm learning about a new startup," Serafina announced. "It's called Lingo Leap. It's an AI-based language tutor." "Cool." Clara Ara said, "My father is thinking of investing. He wants my opinion. I'm supposed to be practicing my French with it." "Would you like to listen?" "I don't speak French," Clara Ara said. "Exactly," Serafina said, a cruel little smile playing on her lips. She tapped her tablet, and a stream of rapid, perfect French filled the room. Then she turned to Clara Ara. "What do you think of its inflection?" Clara Ara knew this game. It was a humiliation ritual. "Sounds French." It said, Serafina said, her voice dripping with condescension, that only an uneducated lower-ass imbecile would wear cheap shoes like yours. "It's wondering if you bought them at a thrift store." Clara Ara looked down at her simple, worn-out sneakers. "They're from a thrift store, actually." "Good eye. But that AI is wrong." "Wrong?" "Yeah, my shoes aren't cheap. They were 50 cents. That's inexpensive. There's a difference. Now what else can it say?" Serafina's smile vanished. The trap hadn't sprung. It's done." Clara Ara nodded. "Okay. Well, my uneducated self is going to go rid. Let me know if you want to teach me any more swear words." She left Serafina sitting in the library fuming. The breakthrough, when it came, was accidental. Clara Ara was looking for a bathroom on the second floor when she passed a door that was slightly ajar. Music was coming from inside. It wasn't the sterile classical music that sometimes played in the halls. It was raw, complex piano. Someone was playing and making mistakes. They'd play a difficult passage from a shop-attitude stumble curse under their breath and start again. Clara Ara pushed the door open. The room was dark, clearly unused, and covered in dust cloths. Everything was shrouded except for a massive, gleaming Bozora grand piano. And sitting at it was Serafina. She wasn't just playing. She was attacking the keys. Her small face knotted in a concentration so fierce it was almost painful. The music was beautiful, but filled with a desperate, lonely anger. She fumbled a chord, hit the keys with her fists, and saw Clara Ara in the reflection. "Get out!" she shrieked, slamming the piano lid shut. That was Clara Ara was breathless. "That was amazing, Sarah. I had no idea." I said, "Get out. You're not allowed in here. No one is." Sarafina was trembling, her eyes wide with panic and rage. "Sarah, it's okay. Just get out. Get out." She grabbed a metronome off the piano and hurled it at Clara Ara. Clara Ara ducked. The metronome shattered against the doorframe. "Okay," Clara Ara said softly, backing out of the room. "I'm going. I'm sorry." She closed the door, her heart hammering. This wasn't the calculated, manipulative girl from the bistro. This was someone raw and terrified. She had stumbled into the heart of the fortress, the one room that wasn't protected. She went downstairs to find Alistair, who had just come home. "Mr. Vance, I need to talk to you." "What is it?" "Did she break something? She was playing the piano in a room on the second floor. When she saw me, she panicked like I'd found a state secret." Alistair Vance's face went white. He visibly swayed, putting a hand on the wall to steady himself. "The music room," he whispered. She's not been in there since it was her mother's." "What, Isabella, my wife? She was a concert pianist. That was her room." I locked it after she died. I didn't know she had a key." "She doesn't just have a key," Clara Ara said, the pieces clicking into place. "She's been practicing. She's brilliant, Alistair. But she's in a lot of pain. And that room is where it all lives." Alistair looked at Clara Ara, his eyes hollow. I thought I was protecting her by locking it away, by moving on. All this time, she's been in there alone. The discovery of the music room changed the dynamic. Alistair, shaken, had given Clara Ara explicit permission to engage with Sarafina on the topic, but Sarafina had retreated. She refused to leave her bedroom, claiming illness. The fortress walls were back up thicker than ever. It was Genevieve Vance who saw the crack as an opportunity. She arrived at the penthouse unannounced 3 days later, ostensibly for a family dinner Alistair had been railroaded into. Clara Ara was in the kitchen trying to coax Sarafina into at least eating some soup when Genevieve glided in. Well, the miracle worker reduced to a delivery girl," Genevieve sneered, pulling an apple from the bowl. "Miss Vance, I was just taking this up to Sarah." Clara Ara said, her tone neutral. "Don't bother. She won't eat it. She knows you're a fraud." Genevieve polished the apple on the sleeve of her silk blouse. "You know Alistair is very impressed with you. He thinks you've made progress. But I know what's really happening." "And what's that?" Clara Ara asked, refusing to be intimidated. "You stumbled onto the one thing that girl cares about. Her mother's music. A cheap emotional parlor trick. And now that she's been discovered, she's shut you out. The game's over, dear. You're out of your league." "I'm not playing a game," Clara Ara said. "Oh, everyone is," Genevieve replied, her voice a low purr. "You are, I am. My brother is. The only one who isn't is Sarafina. And she's the one who pays the price. You think you're helping her? You're just another in a long line of disappointments. You'll take my brother's money, you'll fail, and you'll leave just like everyone else." Clara Ara felt a flash of anger. "Is that what you want?" "For her to be alone." Genevieve's eyes turned to ice. "What I want is what's best for my niece, and that is stability, not a temporary, emotionally stunted college student." She took a delicate bite of the apple. Alistair is too blind with grief and guilt to see it. He needs to cede guardianship to someone who can handle her, someone who understands her. "You," Clara Ara stated, "of course me, I'm her family. Now run along with your little tray. But know this, I am watching you. And when you falter, and you will falter, I will be there to clean up the mess." The threat was clear. Genevieve wasn't just a concerned aunt. She was a predator circling, waiting for Alistair to fail so she could seize control of his daughter. And Clara Ara suspected the massive trust fund attached to her. Clara Ara left her resolve hardened. This wasn't just about a troubled girl anymore. It was about protecting her. She knocked on Sarafina's door. "Sarah, It's Clara Ara. I'm leaving the soup out here. Your aunt's here, so I get it if you want to hide. She's terrifying." She heard a small huff from inside. Clara Ara sat down, leaning against the wall next to the door. "You know," she said, "she thinks I'm going to fail. She's probably right." The door opened a crack. Serafina peeked out. "She's a harpy." "That's one word for it." Clara Ara smiled. "She told me I was out of my league." "You are," Serafina said, "but there was no venom in it, I know. But here's the thing. I don't care about your dad's money." "Yes, you do." "Okay, I do. It's a lot of money, but I'm not here for the money. I'm here because I know what it's like to be the problem kid." Serafina opened the door fully. "You? Oh yeah. When my mum left, my dad had to work 2 jobs. I was not great. I was angry all the time. I got into fights. I broke things. I wanted everyone to hurt as much as I did." "So what happened?" Sarah whispered. "My neighbor, Mrs. Petro, an old Russian lady who smelled like mothballs and garlic. She didn't try to fix me. She just sat with me. She taught me how to play chess. And every time I'd act out, she'd just look at me real calm and say, 'That is a very loud move, but it is not a smart one. Find the smart move.'" Clara Ara looked at her. "Your aunt. She's making a very loud move, but you're smarter than she is. So what's the smart move?" Serafina looked down the hall where Genevieve's sharp laughter could be heard. She told my father that I was the one who asked the chef to make the scallops. She knows I hate scallops. She's trying to make me look difficult. Is that true? Yes. She's always doing it. She suggests things to the staff. Oh, Sarah just loves that itchy cashmere sweater. Or Sarah finds bright colors so stressful. Then when I freak out, she looks at my dad with that. "See, look." Clara Ara nodded. The web was more intricate than she'd thought. Genevieve wasn't just sabotaging the help. She was actively sabotaging Serafina, manufacturing the very behavior she claimed to be so concerned about. So the smart move, Clara Ara said, is not to freak out. "Let's go down to dinner. I don't want to. I know, but we're not going to give her the satisfaction. And I have an idea." Clara Ara and Serafina walked into the dining room. Alistair looked relieved. Genevieve looked surprised. "Serafina, darling, you're feeling better." "I was so worried," Genevieve gushed. "I'm fine, Aunt Genevieve," Serafina said, taking her seat. The main course was served. It was dark. "Oh, wonderful," Genevieve trilled. "I told the chef this was your absolute favourite Serafina, just like your mother used to make." Alistair flinched. The mention of Isabella at the dinner table was a taboo. Serafina froze. Clara Ara could see the storm gathering, the clenched fists, the tightening jaw. This was the trap. If Serafina exploded, Genevieve won. Clara Ara caught Serafina's eye. The smart move. Serafina took a deep breath. She picked up her knife and fork. "Actually, Aunt Genevieve," she said, her voice perfectly level. "Mom never made duck. She hated it. You were the one who always ordered it." She took a small bite. "But this is acceptable." Genevieve's smile froze on her face. Alistair looked from his daughter to his sister, a flicker of understanding dawning in his eyes. Clara Ara hid her smile behind her napkin. Phase 1 was complete, but as Genevieve watched Clara Ara across the table, her eyes were no longer just disdainful. They were filled with pure, calculated hatred. The game had just seriously begun. The small victory against Genevieve bought Clara Ara a new kind of currency with Serafina. Trust. It was fragile, but it was there. Serafina started talking, not about anything deep. She talked about her classes, about a stupid boy at school, about a graphic novel series she loved called The Ethereum Chronicles. Clara Ara went out and bought the first volume. "You're reading it?" Serafina asked, skeptical. "Yeah, that plot twist with Commander Valerius. Did not see that coming," Clara Ara said. A real, genuine smile bloomed on Serafina's face. It transformed her, making her look for a second like a normal 10-year-old. The piano, however, remained the elephant in the house. The door to the music room stayed closed. "Your father," Clara Ara said gently one afternoon, "he told me it was your mom's room." Serafina's smile vanished. So you played just like her. I don't know, Serafina said, turning away. I'm not that good. Sarah, you were playing Chopin. I'm pretty sure that qualifies as good. She wanted me to be perfect. I'm not Sarah. Clara Ara sat next to her on the sofa. What happened with your mum? Serafina went rigid. She fell off her horse. It was an accident. Everyone knows that. But you were there, weren't you? Clara Ara asked, a hunch forming. Serafina stared at her, her face ashen. How did you know your father mentioned she was an equestrian? I guessed. Serafina began to tremble. We were at the stables in Westchester. She wanted to show me a new jump, a really big one. I told her I didn't want to watch. I told her. A tear rolled down her cheek. I told her it was boring, and I wanted to go home and play my video game. She was sobbing now, the words tumbling out. She looked sad. She said, just one more, Sarah. Watch me. Just this one. And I told her I hated her, that she loved her stupid horse more than me. Oh, Sarah, she laughed. She said, I'll prove you wrong, you little monster. And she went for the jump. And the horse, it stumbled. It fell. And she didn't get up. Clara Ara pulled the girl into a hug. And Serafina didn't resist. She clung to Clara Ara, her small body shaking with the force of 2 years of suppressed grief. She never got up. She whispered into Clara Ara's shoulder. And the last thing I ever said to her was, I hate you. She knew you didn't mean it. Clara Ara said, her own voice thick. No, you don't understand. It's my fault. At the funeral, Aunt Genevieve told me, she said, your father's heart is broken. He'll never forgive you for this, for what you said. Clara Ara's blood ran cold. Genevieve. And my father, he won't talk about her. He locked her room. He won't even say her name. It's because he blames me. He hates me. And he's right. This was it. This was the poison, the rot, at the center of everything. It wasn't just grief. It was a profound toxic guilt planted by Genevieve and allowed to fester in Alistair's silence. She lied to you, Sarah, Clara Ara said, pulling back to look her in the eyes. Genevieve is a liar. But my dad, your dad he's a coward, Clara Ara said, standing up. You can't say that. It's true. He's so broken by his own grief that he can't see yours. He's not staying silent because he blames you. He's silent because he thinks if he doesn't say her name, it won't hurt. He's wrong. And we're going to tell him. No, I can't. Yes, you can. I'm not letting her win. I'm not letting her do this to you. Clara Ara grabbed her phone and dialed Alistair. You need to come home now. Clara Ara, I'm in the middle of I don't care if you are negotiating peace in the Middle East. Serafina needs you. Get here now. She hung up. 25 minutes later, Alistair Vance burst into the penthouse, his face pale with panic. What's wrong? Is she hurt? What happened? He found them in the living room. Serafina was sitting on the sofa, her face red and swollen from crying. Clara Ara was standing opposite her, like a sentinel. What is this? Alistair demanded. She needs to tell you something, Clara Ara said. And you need to listen. Alistair looked at his daughter. Sarah, what is it? What's wrong? I, Serafina stammered, looking at Clara Ara, who nodded. I killed her, Serafina whispered. Alistair's face crumpled. What are you talking about? Mom Serafina sobbed. I told her I hated her, and she fell. It's my fault. I know you blame me. Aunt Genevieve said, Genevieve. Alistair's voice was a dangerous whisper. He knelt in front of his daughter. Sarah, look at me. What did Genevieve tell you, that you'd never forgive me, that I broke your heart? Alistair Vance let out a sound of such profound anguish that Clara Ara had to look away. He pulled his daughter into his arms, burying his face in her hair. Oh, my God, he choked out. Serafina, no. It was an accident, a terrible, stupid accident. It was my fault. I should have been there. I was at the office. I've never blamed you, not for 1 second. But you locked her room. You never talk about her. Because I was a fool, he said, his voice cracking. I thought I was protecting you. I couldn't looking at her, things hearing her music. It hurt too much. I've been so stupid. Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. For the first time in 2 years, father and daughter were not a billionaire. And his problem, but just a family grieving. They wept together in the cold, sterile living room, holding on to each other. Clara Ara quietly slipped out, giving them space. She went to the kitchen and made them tea, her hands shaking. This was the impossible thing. It wasn't about schedules or discipline. It was about lancing the wound. Later that evening, Alistista found Clara Ara. His eyes were red, but he looked lighter. He started, his voice thick. I don't have words to thank you. Don't thank me, Clara Ara said. Just don't stop. This is the beginning. She needs you. I know. He reached into his pocket. I want you to have this. He handed her a key. A small, ornate brass key. It's the key to the music room, he said. I think it's time there was music in this house again. I'd like you both. I'd like you to open it. She already has a key. Clara Ara smiled. But this one will be better. The following weeks were like spring after a long, bitter winter. Alistista, at Clara Ara's insistence, started scheduling Sarah time in his calendar, and he kept it. They had dinner together every night. They went to the park. He even awkwardly sat and watched her play the Ethereum Chronicles on her console. And the music room, the door was now always open. Sarafina and Clara Ara would spend hours in there. Clara Ara, who had taken a few lessons as a kid, would plunk out simple tunes, and Sarafina would exasperatedly correct her, her fingers flying over the keys to show her how it was done. For the first time, Sarafina was teaching someone else, her confidence blossoming. She was still prickly, still sarcastic, but the venom was gone. Alistista, watching from the doorway one evening, had tears in his eyes. He caught Clara Ara's gaze and mouthed a simple, "Thank you." Genevieve Vance had been conspicuously absent. She had been politely but firmly uninvited from the penthouse. The silence from her end was to Clara Ara more deafening than her threats. A woman like that didn't just accept defeat. The axe fell on a Thursday. Clara Ara arrived at the penthouse to find a strange, heavy atmosphere. The staff was huddled in the kitchen, whispering. "What's going on?" Clara Ara asked Maria, the head housekeeper. Maria, a woman who was usually warm, wouldn't meet her eyes. "Mr. Vance is in his study. He wants to see you, and Ms. Genevieve is with him." A cold dread washed over Clara Ara. She walked to the study. The door was open. Alistista was standing behind his desk, his face a mask of stone. Genevieve was sitting in a leather chair, looking sympathetic. It was the most terrifying expression Clara Ara had ever seen on her. "Clara, come in," Alistista said. His voice was flat. "What's wrong? Where's Sarah?" "She's in her room," Genevieve said, her voice dripping with pity. "She's very upset, as you can imagine." "What happened?" Clara Ara asked. "Clara Ara," Alistista said. "This morning, I discovered something missing from the safe in my dressing room. A diamond necklace. It belonged to Isabella." Clara Ara's heart stopped. What it was her favorite, Genevieve supplied. "The Riviera necklace, the one from Cartier. I don't understand. What does that have to do with me?" Alistair looked pained. "When I discovered it was gone, I asked the staff. No one had seen anything. But Genevieve, she felt she had to check something." "I knew you had access to the main house, dear." Genevieve said, "You're not staff after all. You come and go. I had a dreadful feeling. So I looked in the coat closet in the pocket of your jacket, the one you left here yesterday." She reached down and placed something on Alistair's desk. It was a small white paper ticket. A pawn ticket from a shop on the Lower East Side. "It's dated for yesterday afternoon," Alistair said, his voice dead. "We called the shop. They have the necklace." Clara Ara couldn't breathe. "I know that's not mine. I've never seen that before. I didn't take anything. A Lister, you have to believe me. Clara Ara, he said, and the disappointment in his voice was a physical blow. A Lister, she's a very convincing girl, Genevieve said, standing up and placing a comforting hand on her brother's arm. I know this is a shock. You wanted to believe in her. We all did. But she's from a different world. The temptation. That necklace is worth over $1 million. It's understandable. Understandable! Clara Ara's voice shook with rage. You did this! Genevieve recoiled, her hand flying to her chest. Me? Why would I do such a thing? To get rid of me, to prove to Alistair that he can't trust anyone but you. You planted that. Alistair? She's hysterical. Genevieve said, her voice firm. This is what they do. They deny. They project. It's classic. I think you need to call the police. The police, Clara Ara whispered, the reality crashing down. Theft, grand larceny. Alistair, Clara Ara pleaded, turning to him. Look at me. You know me. You know I wouldn't do this. Sarah, we were making progress. Was that part of it? Alistair's voice was cold. Gaining our trust. Gaining my daughter's trust just to rob me. No, please. I don't know how that ticket got in my coat. But I didn't put it there. You have security cameras. Check them. I checked. Alistair said, his voice heavy with resignation. The camera in my dressing room was offline. A network error. It hasn't recorded in 2 days. Of course it hadn't. Genevieve was thorough. Alistair. Genevieve pressed. This is painful, but it must be done for Serafina's safety. We can't have a common thief in this house. Alistair looked at Clara, his face a battle of his instincts versus the cold, hard evidence. He picked up his phone. No, he said, I'm not calling the police. Not yet. Alistair Clara, he said. Your services are no longer required. Please just go. Give me back my house keys. I will deal with the necklace. He was firing her. He wasn't having her arrested, but he was. He was throwing her away. He thinks I did it. Clara Ara thought, her mind numb. After everything, he thinks I'm a thief. Tears streamed down her face. It wasn't about the job or the money. It was the betrayal. It was the fact that Genevieve had in the end won. Okay, Clara Ara whispered, pulling the keys from her bag. She placed them on the desk. I didn't do it. And tell Sarah. Tell her I'm sorry. She turned and walked out of the study past the silent staring staff and out of the penthouse. The elevator doors closed and she fell back against the wall, a single devastating sob escaping her. Clara Ara spent the next day in a fog. She sat in her tiny, silent apartment, feeling hollowed out. She had failed to Serafina. She had let that viper Genevieve win. Her buzzer rang insistent and angry. She ignored it. It rang again. Finally, she hit the intercom. Go away. Open the door, you idiot. It's freezing. It was Serafina. Clara Ara buzzed her in. A moment later, the girl was at her door alone, her face red with cold and fury. Sarah, how did you get here? You're supposed to be in school. I took a cab, Serafina said, pushing past her. My father is and my aunt is a liar. Clara Ara stared at her. You don't think I did it? Obviously not, Serafina scoffed. Stealing is a loud move and stupid. It's something she would do. She thinks I'm just a kid who plays piano. She forgot I'm my father's daughter. What do you mean? Serafina threw her backpack down and pulled out a laptop. She forgot I'm also a coder. I set up my own nanny cams months ago to spy on the staff. Aunt Genevieve was smart enough to disable the main security feed, but she didn't know about mine. And my cameras upload to a private cloud. Her fingers flew. Look. She turned the laptop. Clara Ara watched her heart pounding. The first video from 2 days prior showed Genevieve in the study using her laptop to disable the security camera in Alistair's dressing room. The second from that morning showed the front closet. It clearly showed Genevieve looking around before slipping the white pawn ticket into the pocket of Clara Ara's bag. She framed me, Clara Ara whispered. Yes, Serafina said, her voice cold. And now we're going to make the smart move. An hour later, Alistair Vance burst into Clarara's apartment, his face pale with anger. Serafina, you are in. What is she doing here? Look, Serafina commanded, turning the laptop. Alistair watched. He saw his sister's calculated betrayal. He saw the frame-up. His face went from confusion to a pale, cold rage that was terrifying to behold. He didn't speak for a full minute. The smart move, Dad, Serafina whispered. Alistair nodded slowly. The smart move. That evening, Genevieve arrived at the penthouse expecting to find a broken Alistair. Instead, she found Alistair, Serafina, and Clara Ara waiting for her in the living room. Alistair, what is she doing here? Genevieve sputtered. She's a witness. Genevieve Alistair said, his voice dangerously calm. A witness to what you must call the police. This girl is a criminal. You're right. I should call the police, Alistair said, holding up Serafina's tablet. But I think I'll show them this first. He hit play. Genevieve's face went slack. The color drained from her face as she watched her own crimes played back. I did it for the family, she whispered. A last desperate attempt to protect Serafina. From her. You did it for her trust fund. Alistair said, his voice like steel. You poisoned my daughter with guilt, and you tried to frame an innocent woman. Get out, Alistair, please. I'm your sister. You were my sister. Get out of my house. My lawyers will be in contact. If you ever try to contact me or my daughter again, I will release these videos to the district attorney and I will bury you. Genevieve hollowed out and defeated, turned and fled. The door closed, leaving a profound silence. Alistair turned to Clara, his face etched with shame. Clara, the word sorry it's not enough. What I did accusing you, it was unforgivable. Don't worry about me, Clara said softly, looking at Serafina. Just don't stop. This is the beginning. She needs you. Alistair looked at his daughter, who had saved them both. I know. He took a deep breath. I'm starting a new foundation in my wife's name, the Isabella Vance Project. It will fund music and arts programs for at-risk kids, the kind of kids who are acting out because they're in pain. He met Clara Ara's eyes. I need someone to run it, someone who understands, someone who knows the difference between a loud move and a smart move. The job is yours, Clara Ara, if you want it. Clara Ara looked at him and then at Serafina, who was trying not to smile. She felt the tears welling up, but this time they were not for sorrow. Yes, she said, I accept. 6 months later, Clara Ara walked into the penthouse. She was no longer a waitress, but a full-time graduate student and the executive director of the foundation. She followed the sound of music to the room with the open door. Alistair was at the piano, picking out a clumsy bass line. Beside him, Serafina's fingers danced over the keys, playing a complex, beautiful melody. They were playing a duet. It was messy, full of mistakes, and absolutely perfect. Alistair saw her and smiled. Serafina rolled her eyes, but she was smiling too. You're late, she called out, and you're flat dad again from the top. Clara Ara leaned against the doorframe watching them and knew the impossible had already happened. They say money can't solve problems, but that's not entirely true. Money couldn't fix Serafina's grief, and it couldn't buy Alistair a connection with his daughter. But it was a waitress, Clara Ara Jenkins, who showed them that the most valuable currency isn't money at all. It's empathy. It's the courage to see the person behind the problem and to ask the right questions. Genevieve was driven by greed, but Clara Ara was driven by understanding. She didn't just handle the billionaire's daughter. She healed a broken family, including herself. What do you think, was Clara Ara right to take the job? Or was it too dangerous? And what would you have done if you were framed like that? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and be sure to subscribe for more real-life stories of kindness, karma, and the incredible twists of fate. Until next time.